You don't have to commit it. Dros
Finally.
gets one last rant
It's
in, and
thang content. It's thang
finally,
watches.
we move to the second
It's
panel.
the end of this. Thought I'd start recording like...
Now we get to hear from the industry themselves. The panel consists of Craig Johnson, representing the coin-op and arcade owners.
Yeah, for about half an hour we've been hearing
Video Software Dealers
the
Association,
opposing side.
essentially retailers. Eileen
Just
Rosenthal
about
from the Software
absolute
Publishers
horse shit.
Association, and the heavy hitters, Howard Lincoln and Bill White, the vice presidents of Nintendo of America and Sega of America, respectively.
Sega.
There's a lot of layers going on here, namely between Lincoln and White. Both of them are trying to avoid government legislation at all costs, and at the same time undermine the other one and make them out to be these evil fuckers who want to corrupt the youth dem.
Yeah, they
There's
really
also
did.
bad blood, because White used to work for Nintendo. Yeah, it's personal now. Lincoln is first up to defend Nintendo's reputation. Now, throughout his statement, he doesn't outright lie, but he uses some tricky phrasing, let's say. He rightly points out that Nintendo tends to shy away from games with extreme violence, and in fact, the Nintendo seal of approval was developed because they wanted to avoid what happened with Atari, who were too lax with what could get onto their systems, and they ended up with shit like Custer's Revenge. There is one
Completely
moment where,
objectionable.
he says this.
And let me say that for the record, I want to state that Night Trap will never appear on a Nintendo system. Obviously, it would not pass our guidelines.
Oh, they're not going to throw Night Trap under the bus, are they?
Yes, Howard. Nintendo would never license Night Trap for one of their systems. Because they couldn't. Nintendo didn't have a CD-based console until 2001. Recall the Make My Video episode, the only reason Night Trap exists is because Tom Zito had a bunch of CD games from a canceled console lying around in a warehouse, and Sega happened to have some connection to him. Also, Night Trap did release for a Nintendo console.
Yeah, you can probably get it on the Switch right now.
For an anniversary
Yeah, there you
edition
go.
on the Switch. And the game would never even have the level of infamy it does to get a re-release like that if it weren't for this hearing.
Yeah, the game's just a piece of shit otherwise.
Only
It's a
reason
piece of
anyone
shit.
remembers it. He then explains how Nintendo put their foot down and told Acclaim to take the gore out of the Super Nintendo release of Mortal Kombat. He starts digging into their competitors in a backhanded way by saying that they knew they wouldn't get as many sales if they removed the blood.
Oh, come on, Jim Tendo, man.
Through it.
Fuck off, Jim Tendo.
Panders to Congress by saying that, well, he supports a ratings board. The industry really needs to take responsibility and take the violence out.
Oh, fuck you, Jim Tendo.
For corporate responsibility. And great rating games will not make them less violent. Only manufacturers.
Don't tell me how many hookers and strippers Mario isn't gonna kill.
And keeping outrageous games like Night Trap off the market.
Now, White gets to fire back. He opens with the documents. That not only does Sega have a market outside of kids, they're the first to develop a rating system of their own. Apparently, the average age of a Genesis player was 19, and less than 30% were under 13. The average age of a Sega CD owner was 22, probably because you needed a job just to justify paying for it, and 5% of the users were under 13. There's also a lot of statistics about which genres sold the best. It's kind of interesting. He goes on to explain how Sega's in-house rating system was developed, what it means, and how they offer pamphlets to retailers to help parents understand it. They even had a toll-free hotline you could call where someone would break down why a specific game was rated a certain way. It's pretty in-depth. He really starts spitting when he says that they're going to hold a meeting to form an independent ratings board, and
information, not regulation, is the appropriate policy.
Ooh, get fucked.
Is so cathartic. He just says everything I've been thinking this whole time. After the execs are done having a spat, Eileen Rosenthal gets up, and she is so cute.
My name is Eileen Rosenthal, and I'm the General Counsel of the Software Publishers Association. More importantly, Senator Lieberman, I am by birth and at heart a native from the great state of Connecticut.
Time. I just want to give her a hug. She is
Yeah,
so
what? She's
smiling,
beaming.
excited
She's
to talk
just
about what
exuding
Publishers
positivity.
Association is, and how games can help children with ADHD focus and learn, and how the top-selling software each month
Whoa.
is Microsoft Flight
What a
Simulator
wholesome big chungus lady.
sports. It really highlights how different the markets were between console and PC, which she is mainly representing.
Yeah,
She
I've
actually
never
mentioned
seen this
that
side
she
of the
was
trial
talking
before.
to Terry Valesky from Atari about how he took the Jaguar into a children's hospital and how it just lit them up with joy to be playing a video game. Like, just imagine you're a little kid with cancer and Terry Valesky walks in with the Atari Jaguar. You know, after playing Cybermorph, I'm actually pretty stoked to die. Bring it on. She ends up running over her allotted time before she's even to her second point. She's just so jazzed up to be there, and she kind of hurries through the rest of her statement, namely that the SPA supports an independent ratings board, and the industry needs to work with psychologists when developing it. Fourth up is Dawn Wiener, president of the Video Software Dealers Association.
Strong name,
known
like
as the
Dawn Wiener.
Entertainment Merchants Association. She doesn't have a whole lot to say. Essentially, she's concerned about kids seeing violent content, but that she's also concerned about government overreach. Also, she restates what's been hanging over this entire hearing, which is that the industry had just announced they were forming a ratings board. Finally, Johnson, the former president of the Amusement and Music Operators
Wow.
I feel bad for Johnson because he's only really here as a formality. He makes it clear that there's nothing they can do to stop kids from playing violent arcade games like Sega or Nintendo could, because anyone can just order an arcade cabinet. What are you gonna have, an agent guarding every laundromat with a Mortal Kombat machine? He does mention that they've gotten complaints from parents, and they've had discussions with developers and publishers that what they're making could result in government crackdown, which no one wants. His segment is pretty short and uneventful, but now that the panel is done presenting, we can get into the juicy stuff, because the senators can begin their line of questioning.
Mr.
Right.
White, let me begin with you, and I suppose in one sense go to the heart of the matter. We saw the clip before from Night Trap, and I said earlier that I thought that violence was gratuitous and offensive and ought not to be available to people in our society. Why don't you agree? Why doesn't Sega just pull Night Trap off the market?
Lieberman asks...
Holy shit.
This
It's the first question.
White replies that Night Trap was developed for adults and was rated appropriately. And Lieberman responds with this just... heater of a question.
Do you think it's even appropriate for you to be pushing that stuff out there for adult audiences to use? I mean,
What? Joe, you can't be serious. I could understand the argument when it was about children seeing graphic content, but you don't think adults should be able to make the decision themselves?
Night Trap's just
whether or
too
not to
objectionable
engage
for
with the game?
adults.
This
Like,
isn't like a snuff film or
don't worry about Harvester.
where it contains actual illegal acts that harm people. It's an actress screaming because of
Yeah,
vampire
it's
put a little
this.
spinny thing on her neck.
you've mentioned
Think of the children! But also, if it's not children, think of society, man.
to go across that line and produce this stuff for adults or kids.
Let me make 2 points. First, if you showed only the violent and gory scenes from out of context consecutively, one after the other, from Roots or Gone with the Wind, you might conclude they're horrible films. But in reality, they aren't. And what you've done is picked a particular segment of that game. Let me clarify. A winning effort within Night Trap saves the women. Your job as the player is to identify the villains and to trap them. If you are a good player, you keep the villains from the women and men who are potential victims. This game is an appropriate game for adults that choose to entertain themselves in this way, shape, and form. If you're a bad player, what happens? If you're a bad player, you will see that scene.
The woman gets attacked.
The woman gets attacked.
What a fucking asshole. Just interrupt him in the middle of speaking? You don't have the talking stick, you fucking tool.
You're going to have a long way to go to convince me that you're raising anyone's values or reducing anyone's inclination toward aggression, and particularly aggression toward women, by putting this on the market.
Oh, what a weird, silly argument.
fuck?
Media has to raise values. What does it even mean?
Imagine if conservatives used violence against women as a topic in one of their debates now. They'd be fucking kicked out of the party immediately.
Let adults make decisions for themselves, so he disagrees with White that they have adults in their audience. On what basis does he disagree when White brought the statistics? Oh, he just says he does.
Let me talk to you about the rating system. I understand your argument. I disagree with it, that you have a broad market and it includes adults as well as kids. But
Disagree with
set up
a
the
broad
rating system
market.
to try to give advice.
And then he moves on. He could have questioned where the stats came from or something, but no. Just sneak that in there because you can't let yourself be wrong. Here's a gotcha. Lieberman says his staff procured a pamphlet of Sega's hot games for 1993, which has Night Trap next to non-violent games with no rating to speak of. This is where you see the first cracks in White's defense. He clearly wasn't prepared for that, and when he's on the back foot, he circles back to the same talking points every time. We've taken the first step, there's content for children and adults, we want the ratings board to be visible.
Senator Lieberman, we've taken the first step to what we believe is a more appropriate industry-wide rating system. The interactive entertainment industry, as it grows with the technology available, will continue to produce product that's appropriate for both children and adults. We would like to see better enforcement at retail. We would like to see the ratings prominently displayed in the advertising of all the games. That is a step that we will take with the industry-wide coalition.
Do you agree that this is irresponsible then?
And it's weird, but I think he uses this as thinking time, because when Lieberman repeats his question, which White didn't answer, he actually has a reasonable response, that the pamphlet was made before Sega had finalized the rating system. Then there's a much worse gotcha, because Lieberman plays an ad for Mortal Kombat on Genesis that pretty clearly uses some school-aged kids, and White doesn't really have anything to respond with, so...
The intent with the Sega video game rating system and the independent council and the packaging guidelines that we've established, Senator, is to take a first step. But we do believe that more information and a better rating system is the answer, not regulation and certainly not censorship.
Well, the rating system is only a first step, and it is a fig leaf to cover a lot of transgressions if you do not spread out.
Yeah, White knows
fuck
that
you,
he just has to sit there and
Lieberballs.
take it. He does bring up that the ad was not run on children's television, so there's that. Right after genuinely catching Sega on something, Lieberman brings up a magazine ad for Splatterhouse 3, which was placed by Namco, which Sega has no control over, but there's an ulterior motive here.
At the top, it says he's back. Splatterhouse 3 for the Sega Genesis is the kind of game rating systems were invented for.
This is a key point, because if you remember from the first panel, one of the concerns was that publishers could use a mature rating as a selling point to make their games more appealing to kids. Lieberman wants to get a bill passed, so he's trying to build a case for why an independent ratings board would fail to protect children. That's why he asks this.
Don't you agree that that kind of advertisement makes a mockery of your rating system? By that I mean to say the specific reference that this is the kind of game that rating systems were invented for.
Essentially, he wants to make the argument that publishers won't respect the role of the ratings board unless it's a government institution. And he really wants one of these industry reps to admit that. White is keenly aware of this, though, and he doesn't take the bait.
I haven't seen this advertisement, Senator Lieberman, and we don't have control. We don't have control over what an independent publisher would say about our system, nor, I believe, would the motion picture industry have control over what an individual studio might say about the MPAA guidelines.
But wouldn't you agree, just having seen it now, that that makes a mockery of your rating system? And I can't believe that's what you want your independent producers to do with your rating system.
We want to go to the next step, Senator, and that's why we've worked around the clock over the last 2 weeks to establish an industry coalition to work with your committee and the other members of Congress to develop an industry-wide system that will be more effective.
At this point, most of the heat has
God, Lieberman's like a
and
fucking
White's been blocking these over
shit brick wall.
But Big Lieb wants to hear from Nintendo now.
Oh, and Nintendo gonna throw Sega,
Creating the ratings
what Nintendo doesn't, under the
opportunity
bus.
to grandstand again, saying that they need to take the violence out, and rips into White, calling him a liar for trying to tell
Oh, fuck
more
you.
games now. But that's not
Nintendo can always get
Can't
fucked.
let you sit here.
Fucking Apple of gaming bitches.
This Sega Night Trap game was somehow only meant for adults.
I'm not
The fact of the
buying it,
matter is,
Bruh, your entire company was fucking funded by gamblers and the Yakuza.
game at all when the game was introduced. Small children bought this at Toys
This guy himself probably is a diddler.
When they started getting heat about this game, then they adopted the rating system and put ratings on it.
That's why he's so outraged. If you're outraged about, like, if you're this publicly outraged
That
about
I agree.
the children,
Everything that we've done has not.
that's an immediate red flag that you
When I came
probably
into the hearing room
went
this
to
morning,
Epstein Island,
I
right?
saw that you've got an advertisement up here for one of the Super Nintendo Entertainment System games that says they've got a bullet with your name on it. Well, let me tell you what I did. I phoned my office to find out that that licensee put that advertisement out without our consent, without our review, and without our permission. And unless that advertisement is withdrawn, that company is in breach of its license agreement. So we do have, just as Sega does in the case of Namco, which is a Sega licensee,
Oh, fuck off.
and the right to control advertising by our licensees.
You have the ability and the right by bullying the companies.
That we slipped up and our licensee didn't tell us about this.
Fucking
But
company
let
of
me tell you, when I
Yakuza
get
gamblers,
back to
piece of
Seattle,
shit,
I will call
Nintendo.
that licensee.
And they're still milking people to this day. If you're in the Nintendo system, ecosystem, just get out. You can pirate all their shit, including the Switch.
That's right.
Like,
Street
stop giving them money.
Fighter 2.
Emulate the Switch on a Steam Deck or your PC.
White, you're losing him here. Also, why is the music so sped up?
And on that note, any and all subscription services you have, there are free alternatives
Nintendo has accepted
that give you the exact same, if not better, feature sets.
previously been
So
self-regulating.
cut all your cords. Stop donating to billionaires.
I can't believe Lincoln's lie worked. Cole asks an adorable question of whether or not they can guarantee that children can't get a hold of violent games. White
Oh, fuck off.
agree that
That's actually a government regulation issue.
board and cooperation with retailers would
Yeah,
help.
that's a retail/governmental problem.
We can get everybody in this business, not just the video game companies, but the retailers and the government, involved in putting a stop to the kind of things that you're seeing in Night Trap. We're really deceiving ourselves that we're going to keep this,
You fucking
this kind
piece of
violence
shit.
out of the hands of children.
Jim
Oh,
Tendo.
I see what you did there. Whose team are you on?
Yeah, exactly. He's on Team fucking Diddler.
We made a concerted
Clearly.
effort from the VSDA to meet with all the video game manufacturers. Sega helped to implement it. We had 8 different manufacturers showed up. Nintendo declined.
Yeah, of course they fucking did.
Meeting, the most important thing we did was the video game rating system and how we were going to implement that system.
Get fucked, Jim Tendo.
In quite some length about how
Your
VSDA
false fucking morals
and that
exposed.
even if it do get a good
She knows
in place.
that you went to Epstein Island.
Well, I'm sorry, but Ms. Weiner has failed to tell you that Nintendo does not distribute its video games to VSDA members. Sega does. So obviously, Nintendo is not the VSDA's favorite customer.
We also represent Toys R Us and Walmart, our members. We are not just the video rental business. We also represent the video game sales business.
All right.
You just got weaned on, bro. After this,
Yeah, fuck off, Jim
Johnson
Tendo. Sit back
kids from
down.
seeing violent arcade games, and he just explains there's economic pressure from parents who don't want their children playing violent video games. That's really all you can say. Cole
Actually.
himself actually commends the panel because the fact that they disagree with each other gives him the impression that they aren't one big evil cabal. He does make sure to this threat
I hope you walk away with one thought today, that if you don't do something about it, we will.
That's America's slogan. That should be printed on their currency. But anyway, I'm going to, that will be the end of this Thang Watches. But what I will quickly do, what was his name? Yeah, he's still alive, kicking on Epstein Island. Lieutenant Lincoln on Epstein Island. Oh, of course. Yeah, look, check it out. Check it, bruh. I see you. See your diddling ways. Anyway, thanks for watching.